breathtaking scenic drive leads you to the picturesque town of Zanin. The area is a major producer of timber, tea and agricultural products, with the locals delighted with the steady rain that had set in over the northern province. That was great for the locals, but you didn't need to be a rocket scientist to work out that the Stanek Great North Rally, sponsored by Stanek and Sasol, was going to be a wet and muddy affair. Apart from being a major tourist centre with ethnic art and culture very much in evidence, Zanin was also home base for the Stanek Great North Rally, with the event the final round of this year's Stanek National Rally Championship. With the overall championship and other titles at stake, the Stanek Great North Rally was set to provide a tremendous finale to the season. Adding to the tension was the fact that the first 4 crews in the championship, including reigning champions Jan Havoc and Douglas Judd, were in with a chance of winning this year's South African drivers and co-drivers titles. Havoc and Judd, Van der Vault and Harding, Fecken and Lukowitz, and Damso and Bonafide were all in the championship running, with the weather an added complication where all the permutations were concerned.
This event, our approach would be to really just concentrate on doing as best as we can, and I think just ignoring the permutations and get that out of our mind completely. So, but our strategy won't be to put our heads down and go flat out. That will definitely not be it. So I think we'll just play around for the first day. I actually think in the first day the whole event will sort itself out. So we're just going to hang in there and see what the motives of the other competitors are.
The drum majorettes brought a touch of colour to an otherwise bleak scene at the Zanin Town Centre start. It was raining steadily, with the weather forecast predicting no let-up for the duration of the rally. 6-time South African champions Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide were first car away, with the Castrol Toyota crew needing a win to keep alive their championship hopes. Stanek Fleet Management Rally winners Paolo Piazzamuso and Nick Haddon were out of the championship equation, but were intent on a good finish to the season in the Sasol Ford Escort. Third on the road were reigning champions Jan Havoc and Douglas Judd, with the factory VW crew needing only to finish in the top 13 to clinch back-to-back South African titles. A total of 9 special stages were on the menu for day 1, with all the competition sections within easy reach of Zanin. Competitors always knew that conditions were going to be tricky. Just how tricky was the big question. Under normal circumstances, being drawn first on the road is something of an advantage. Despite all his vast experience, 6-time champion Serge Damso wasn't so sure that in these conditions, a Pathfinder's role was the ideal situation in which to find himself.
It's quite slippery out there, so I'll be the first one to find out if there's any spots where people are going to go off anyway. But we'll just have to take it as it comes. But tonight, most probably we'll know what's going on. I think it's going to be a big gaps.
Championship permutations left Damso and Bonafide with no alternative but to push for overall victory, and that meant taking a few risks. Sasol Ford Escort pair Paolo Piazzamuso and Nick Haddon were not part of the championship picture, and that allowed them to settle on a strategy that was slightly more conservative.
It's going to be really difficult. I think that it's really a fine line, you know, keeping the concentration, keeping yourself in check, and yet trying to put up the time. So we'll see. We'll play it as it comes. I think I'm going to go in with a conservative approach. I think that's the best way to go about it. Let the other ones take themselves out.
Well, that conservative approach adopted by Piazzamuso and Haddon was also the route to go where championship leaders Jan Havoc and Douglas Judd were concerned. Needing just 8 points to clinch the championship, the VW Golf factory crew could afford to be a little circumspect. 11-time South African champion Sarel van der Merwe in the factory Daewoo Lanos was also not part of the championship equation, but reckoned that staying on the road was not going to be easy.
I tell you, there must be a hell of a good chance of not finishing this event in this mud. I think it's going to be a rally of attrition, and survival will be the game today.
How do you like the wet, personally?
The wet up here is probably worse than anywhere else. You know, it's very, very slippery, and well, last year we got stuck for half an hour. And it's going to be, I think, difficult to stay on the road for everybody, not only for us.
Well, as if rain and mud wasn't enough, competitors also had to contend with intermittent mist in the mountainous forest stages. Team Total Toyota Conquest crew Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley got off to an encouraging start, while Class A7 champions Chad van der Veld and Cindy Harding were faced with a dilemma. They still had a chance of winning the overall championship, but survival was uppermost in their minds.
This event in the last 2 years haven't been friendly to us. I mean, we couldn't manage to finish it. So firstly, we would like to finish this event, and for the championship, it's also very important to us. On paper, we got a chance to win the championship, but there's something called reality. And I mean, with that in mind, I mean, all the A8 cars must actually fall out, and we must win. So it's not really, I think, something to worry about. What will be. I mean, the weather will make it very interesting again. So we must just keep on the road and see what happens in front of us.
Pretoria crew Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz in the Dunair Toyota Conquest also had a mathematical chance of winning the overall championship, but like Van der Walt and Harding, had to finish first, with Habak and Judd and Damso and Bonafide among the non-finishers. That was a tall order for the Class A6 champions, but in the battle for class honours, they took an early lead with arch rivals Jean-Pierre Damso and Pierre Aris headed for a Stage 1 off-road excursion in the Team Total Toyota Conquest. The episode was to cost the Cape crew 18 minutes and impacted on the crews behind them. Van der Merwe and Buerta were 19 seconds quicker than anyone else through Stage 1, but Supervan's comments were as forthright as ever.
What's it like out there, Sorrel?
Terrible. It's as slippery as all hell, and I think it's going to be a hell of a job just keeping the cars on the road, all of us.
You've got to pretend you're a spur-wing goose.
I don't know what you got to do, but it's difficult.
Special Stage 2 was cancelled because of the adverse conditions, and things weren't much better in Special Stage 3. Team Total VW Golf pair Barry Grobbelaar and Mike Burrows were tippy-tapping their way through the mud and slush, with KwaZulu-Natal crew Tony Ball and Alec Harris not far behind. Paolo Piazzamuso and Nick Haddon were Stage 3 casualties in the Sasol Ford Escort. A broken gearbox sidelined them, and they were to be joined by Port Elizabeth traffic cop Keith Coleman and Uwe Koch, who were crawling through the stage with what was to prove to be a terminal engine problem. In the battle for the Group N championship for standard cars, leaders Hannes Grobbelaar and Dave McGregor got off to a shaky start and lost 8 minutes in Special Stage 1 in the Bridgestone Nissan Sentra. That put Grobbelaar and McGregor under a little pressure from early Class N2 leaders Diffie Moret and Donny Duval in the Toyota Corolla. Moret and Duval were involved in a battle for the Class N2 championship with 2 other Toyota crews in Skalkberger and Thilo van Vestenhagen and Dean Saunders and Graham Hooper, who were off to a solid start. The Team Total Nissan Sentra crew of Blackman and Claassen had caught Moret and Duval in Stage 3 in their attempt to make up 8 points on Grobbelaar and McGregor in the Group N and Class N3 championships. Behind them, Craig Trott and Brian Duncan were finding it hard going in the Class A6 Team Total Toyota Conquest, while Godrich Toyota Corolla pair Skalkberger and Thilo van Vestenhagen were looking to wrap up the Class N2 title. Cape crew Pierre Huisson and Eugene Blanche were going along steadily in a privately entered VW Golf, with an Italians Dean Saunders and Graham Hooper in the Team Total Toyota Conquest also part of the fight for the Class N2 title. At service points, there was no shortage of good and bad luck stories.
Well, the start from the starting ramp to the first stage was quite good. But in the first stage, I've never been in a front-wheel drive in mud, so I had to see what I can do and what the car can do. And we went off the road. We lost about 8 minutes. Luckily, we got back on the road. The guys fixed the car, and we're going. We took off a few minutes of the guys. I think we were stone last after the first stage, but I think at the moment we're climbing the ladder.
While Grobbelaar and McGregor climbed up the leaderboard, Castrol Toyota Conquest crew Serge Damso and the rest of the Class A8 pack were chasing after early leaders Sarel van der Merwe and Martin Buerta. Damso and Bonafide took 10 seconds off van der Merwe and Buerta in Special Stage 4. There was no let-up where the rain was concerned, and even for the top crews, conditions were treacherous. Championship leaders Jan Habak and Douglas Judd were happy to play second fiddle to van der Merwe and Buerta, who had nothing to lose if they fell off the road, and Damso and Bonafide, for whom a win was imperative. Race cam action from the factory VW Golf gives an indication of just how wet, muddy and slippery it was in the forests. Even wet weather maestros like Sarel van der Merwe make the odd mistake in conditions like these. Supervan was also complaining about a sticking throttle on the factory Daewoo Lanos, with van der Merwe and Buerta now starting to come under a little pressure from Damso and Bonafide. Italians Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley were going along nicely in the Team Total Toyota Conquest, with the pair in a steady 4th position. Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding in the Reeks Towing VW Golf were not having a happy time of it. Apart from a faint championship chance, the crew were also defending a 100% finish record this season. With the VW Golf starting to run into electrical problems, continued survival was starting to look a little doubtful. Class A6 champions Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz had put the Dunair Toyota Conquest into 5th place behind the Class A8 cars, and their slim championship hopes were still alive. Hannes Grobler had by now figured out the vagaries of front-wheel drive in muddy conditions, and the Bridgestone Nissan Sentra was making some spectacular progress through the field. Grobler is a former South African rally and off-road champion, but racecam action again highlighted the difficulties with which crews were having to cope. For drivers, total concentration was an absolute necessity, with potential disaster a constant threat. Team Total Nissan pair, Cliff Blackman and Johan Claesson, dropped around 4 minutes on Grobler and McGregor in special stage 4, which was even more unkind to Toyota Corolla crew Diffie Moreira and Dani de Waal. They lost 6 minutes to Class N2 championship leaders Skalkberger and Thilo van Vestenhagen. Modern Group N cars, like the Toyota Corolla, are all front-wheel driven, but enjoying themselves hugely in an aging Nissan driven via the back wheels were Bossy Bosman and Steve Grobler, who were in among the Group N contingent. Behind the Bosman-Grobler combination, the brother and sister team of Jackie and Lisa Joubert had the advantage of four-wheel drive in the VW Beetle, powered by a turbocharged Volvo engine. Four-wheel drive is great when you need traction, but when it comes to stopping, the Jouberts had the same problem as everyone else. For all that, the VW Beetle Volvo was running in the top 10, although these Class S20 cars are not eligible to score championship points. It was turning into a tough day for many crews, with Cliff Blackman and Johan Claesson running into their share of trials and tribulations.
You're having a rough morning.
Yeah, it's rugged out there.
Tell us what happened in stage 1.
Stage 1, we came across a couple of car stops in the stage. JP had put a rope across the road trying to get his car out and held us all up there for quite some time. And that didn't help matters much.
And then you had a problem with a puncture?
Yes, we had a puncture on stage 2. And this stage we got stuck twice, so we better get out and push, much to Johan's delight. But we're still running, and I think it's important in this event.
The battle at the front of the field had quickly turned into a straight fight between Sarel van der Merwe and Martin Botha in the Daewoo Lanos, and Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide in the Castrol Toyota Conquest. The van der Merwe Botha Lanos was the lone Daewoo runner after teammates Enzo Kuhn and Guy Hodgson ran into an engine problem before the start of the rally. The Daewoo and the Toyota pair were swapping stage win in what was turning into an intriguing contest. Class A6 leaders Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz had slotted into a comfortable 5th position behind the Class A8 runners. As long as the Dunne Toyota kept running, Fecken and Lukowitz had a slim chance of taking the championship. But arch rivals Jean-Pierre Damso and Pierre Aris were out of the running, with the Team Total Toyota crew also a little unpopular with a few other crews who were held up by the pair during Special Stage 1. The Team Total VW Golf of Barry Grobler and Mike Burrows had taken over the Class A7 lead from the struggling Van der Walt Harding Reeks-towing VW Golf, with an Italians Tony Ball and Alec Harris, one of the crews not too enamoured with young Damso and Aris. And then along came Class N2 championship contenders Diffie Moreira and Dani de Waal in the Toyota Corolla, and an effective demonstration of just how easy it was to go off the road. Moreira and de Waal were lucky to find on hand a couple of intrepid spectators who helped the Cape crew get the Toyota Corolla back on the road. And while all that was going on, Cliff Blackman and Johan Claesson and Class N2 leaders Skalkberger and Thilo van Vestenhagen in the Godrich Toyota Conquest were impatiently waiting in the queue. Forward progress through the mud was a slow and tricky business. For veteran Skalkberger and Thilo van Vestenhagen, the hold-up was frustrating. The pair were into the top 10 and leading both the N2 category and Class N2. But this delay cost them 3 minutes, and Grobler and McGregor were closing in on the Toyota crew. Progress wasn't this slow for 4th-placed Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley, but up at a service point, driver Lawrence was still in cautious mode.
I don't want to stick my neck out now. I think it would be unwise. For some of the stages you can get nice speed, but how to stop the thing at the end of the straight is another story.
Service crews were working under difficult conditions, but for some it was turning into a day to forget in a hurry. Just ask Jean-Pierre Damso.
On the first stage we lost 18 minutes there, went off the road. So, and every stage after that also lost time. I think everybody's having the same problem going off the road and that. And then our service crew also went off the road, so we didn't have service crew for 2 or 3 stages. So that doesn't make things easier for us.
It was still raining steadily when the Stanek Great North Rally resumed after a short supper break. Proceedings got underway with a spectator special stage in the centre of Zanin, with the Daewoo Lanos of Sarel van der Merwe and Martin Botha still out in front. With the cancellation of one of the 3 special stages scheduled for after the supper break, it was a shorter night than anticipated for crews, but no one was complaining. The 2-night special stages proved to be profitable for Castrol Toyota Conquest crews Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide, who took 36 seconds off van der Merwe and Botha. Reigning champions Jan Habach and Douglas Judd were more than a minute and a half behind the Toyota, but still went on track for back-to-back overall titles. Understandably, Habach and Judd were still not in any mood to take chances. The short spectator stages are not every competitor's cup of tea, but they pull in the crowds. And despite the weather, there was a huge turnout of spectators from Zanin and the surrounding areas. The Dunair Toyota Conquest of Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz was still a solid 5th, with the pair leading Class A6. A terrific performance saw Class N2 leaders Skalkberger and Thilo van Vestenhagen up to 6th overall in the Godrich Toyota Corolla. And with the retirement of championship contenders Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding, the Krobelaar Burrows Team Total VW Golf was firmly in control of Class A7. With day 1 drawing to a close, the scales were still evenly balanced, with the weather and road conditions the critical factors.
Well, Peter, like I said earlier, you know, I don't think it's going to mean a lot until the last few stages, because it's just so bad out there and so slippery. You can overshoot, you can go off, you can do anything. So it's not, I'd rather be 51 ahead than catching 51. Put it that way.
At the end of day 1, the Van der Merwe Botha lead had been cut to just 15 seconds. There were some big gaps between crews, but a couple of tight battles were also brewing, with a great deal of interest focused on the Group N scrap. The rain held off for a few minutes before the start of day 2, but with the rally and championship issues still delicately poised, there was plenty of tension among crews and team managers. 9 stages were scheduled for day 2, with Zanin once again the hub. Under leaden skies, with more rain forecast, there was always the possibility that more special stages were going to be cancelled. The opening special stage on day 2 was another all-tar spectator affair, with Sarel van der Merwe and Martin Botha defending a 15-second lead over Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide. With reigning champions Jan Habach and Douglas Judd content to sit back and defend 3rd place, the Stanek Great North Rally was now a straight fight between the Daewoo Lanos and the Castrol Toyota Conquest. Van der Merwe is a past master at rally mind games, but just to make it more interesting, 2nd place wasn't going to be enough for Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide where the championship was concerned. That set out a classic confrontation between 2 crews with 24 national drivers and co-drivers titles between them. Apart from needing to finish just 13th to secure the 8 points needed for back-to-back South African drivers and co-drivers titles, Jan Habach and Doug Judd also had it in the back of their minds to conserve the factory VW Golf for the World Championship RAC Rally in the United Kingdom in November. Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz started the day 15 minutes behind leaders Van der Merwe and Botha, but their slim championship hopes were still alive. All they needed was for the 4 Class A8 cars ahead of them to fall by the wayside. It was hardly likely, but the pair have had a marvellous season, with Fecken a talent for the future. Veteran Skalkberger's future is now behind him, but he and Thilo van Vestenhagen were doing a great job in the Godrich Toyota Corolla. They led Class N2 and the Group N category overnight, but were looking over their shoulders at Hannes Grobler and Dave McGregor in the Bridgestone Nissan Sentra. The Bridgestone crew had been up and down the field like a yo-yo on day 1, but were well clear of closest Group N championship rivals Cliff Blackman and Johan Klaassen. Grobler and McGregor only had to finish ahead of Blackman and Klaassen to wrap up the Group N and Class N3 titles, but they also had it in their minds to chase after Berger and van Vestenhagen. After the luxury of an all-tar stage to start the day, crews found themselves quickly back in a mud and slush environment. Special Stage 12 was cancelled, and going into Stage 13, Sarel van der Merwe and Martin Botha in the Daewoo Lanos now led Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide by a tenuous 3 seconds. The battle lines were now clearly demarcated, and the sort of battle everyone in the rally world had been hoping for was now a reality. It was head-to-head between 2 of the most experienced and talented rally drivers produced in South Africa, with Damso and Bonafide forced to go for broke in conditions that were still treacherous. Reigning champions and 1998 champions-elect, Jan Habak and Doug Judd, were now around 2 minutes behind the battle, going on ahead of them. The VW Golf crew were under a little pressure from Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley in the Team Total Toyota Conquest, but the Habak-Judd championship aspirations were still firmly on track, and there was no need for them to break out in a sweat. Matters were getting a bit tough, though, for Skalkberger and Thilo van Vestenhagen, who had all their rally tyres stolen overnight and were left with just one set to complete the rally. They still led Class N2 by a mile, but Hannes Grobler and Dave McGregor had taken huge wads of time off the Godrich Toyota crew. Class N1 championship contenders Alan Worms and Ashley Herricker were struggling along in the tiny Opel Corsa.
In the little 1300 Opel Corsa, and you don't have much power, it's a standard Group M car. And when the roads have been turned up, it's really slippery with not much horsepower. Getting up these little hills, it's not easy. It's a hard task. But we managed yesterday. I just hope we can do the same today and get through these stages like we did yesterday, and then everything's fine.
To win Class N1, Worms and Herricker had to finish no lower than 16th, and they still had 2 places to make up. It was going to be a tight call, and their situation was just one of the little cameos that held the interest of an event that also produced unsung heroes in the service crews who were working under severe conditions. Despite the rain, big crowds flocked to special stages, and stage 14 provided spectators with plenty of entertainment. Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley were early victims at a particularly treacherous section of the route. With the Team Total Toyota Conquest blocking the road, Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz lost time when they arrived on the scene. But with help from Paisley and a few willing spectators, the pair was soon on their way, with the Dunair Toyota crew still in 5th place. Next on the scene were Skalkberger and Thilo van Vestenhagen in the Godrich Toyota Corolla. Poles and cable stays provided additional obstacles to be negotiated, but Berger simply took a deep breath and went merrily on his way without losing too much time. Steaming along behind Berger and van Vestenhagen were Hannes Grobler and Dave McGregor, who were now ahead of the Toyota crew and led the Group N category. The Lawrence-Paisley Toyota was finally extricated from the mud, and then along came Grobler and McGregor to provide the enthusiastic crowd with more entertainment. Grobler and McGregor were deep in the mire, but with a little help from a couple of spectators who were having the time of their lives, the Bridgestone pair were sent on their way after losing over a minute to Berger and van Vestenhagen. When Pierre Hussen and Eugene Blanche put in an appearance, the road was clear, with the Cape crew given a huge roar of approval from the spectators for making it through under their own steam. At the next service point, Grobler looked concerned, but McGregor was still upbeat.
Well, 14 was the waterfall stage. We had it all together, and as we came around the stay wire, there was a drop-off to the left, and unfortunately we dropped off. It cost us a minute, but you know, we're building a lot of character, that I want to tell you. We've got character we haven't even used yet. Still a couple of stages to go. I know Hannes is at his best coming from behind, and we're still having fun.
Well, McGregor and Grobler were having fun all right, and Jan Habak and Doug Judd looked as though they didn't have a care in the world. But the rally gods were not yet finished when it came to drama on the Stanek Great North Rally. With 2 special stages to go, Cyril van der Merwe and Martin Botha still led Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide, but the gap was now just 13 seconds. Van der Merwe was looking to add to the more than 70 national championship victories already under his belt, with the Daewoo team looking to score wins in 2 successive Stanek National Rally Championship events. Damso and Bonafide still needed to finish ahead of Supervan and Botha to stay alive in the championship, and race cam action from the Habak and Judd car here captured the turning point of the rally. Up ahead of the VW Golf, the Daewoo Lanos was firmly stuck in the mud, with both Van der Merwe and Botha out of the car. Through went Habak and Judd, and with Van der Merwe and Botha losing 21 minutes, victory number 4 this season was in the bag for the Castrol Toyota crew. Jan Habak and Douglas Judd moved into 2nd place, with Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley also moving ahead of the Daewoo pair, and they were now in 3rd. Van der Merwe and Botha had built up enough of a lead to stay ahead of Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz, while Hannes Grobler and Dave McGregor had once again moved ahead of Skalkberger and Thilo van Vestenhagen, and were back in 6th place overall and leading the Group N category. The final stage at the Zanin Test Grounds was of academic interest, where the overall result was concerned. But a great 6th overall saw Skalkberger and Thilo van Vestenhagen clinch the Class N2 championship. A steady drive took Cape pair Pierre Goosen and Eugene Blanche into 8th overall, with Fernando Rueda and Johan Seeling slipping almost unnoticed into 9th place overall. Rocky Reinecker and Richard Gerrandholt scored their maiden Class A7 victory in the Hencom Golf GTI. Cliff Blackman and Johan Klaassen missed the boat where the Group N Championship is concerned, while another steady drive saw Gijs Klein and Carolyn Simmer secure 3rd place in Class N3. Bossy Bosman and Steve Krobler were still having fun in the Class S20 Nissan, with Richard Bam and Johan Barnard 2nd in Class N2 in the Palbin Opel Corsa. Alan Worms and Ashley Herricker were the only Class N1 finishers and were high enough up the leaderboard to snatch the Class N1 championship from Rodney Fasaki and Chris Alton. The battle was won for Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide, but it was Jan Habak and Douglas Judd who won the war. 2nd was enough to give the pair back-to-back South African championships, with Hannes Grobler and Dave McGregor the Group N and Class N3 champions. The Stanek Great North Rally also saw Berger and Van Vestenhagen and Worms and Herricker clinch the Class N2 and Class N1 titles. For Damso and Bonafide, it was a case of so near and yet so far.
Yes, it wasn't easy. Solo had a fantastic rally and we had a good dive all the way to the end. And that's what it's all about.
For South African champions Jan Habak and Douglas Judd, there was also plenty to celebrate.
It's been a tough year with sort of high peaks and lows, but I think the result speaks for itself, and I'm very happy, Douglas is happy, and the team, I think, they're delighted.
A huge cheer was reserved for Group N champions Dave McGregor and the ever-jovial and popular Hannes Grobler.
I think we pulled everything together. We're glad for all our sponsors that we could pull it through, and I hope we're going to be back next year with maybe something better.
Toyota had wrapped up the prestigious Manufacturers' Championship before the Stanek Great North Rally, which was brought to you by Stanek and Sasol.
Is proud.